Hello, Attorney General. How are you?
I'm doing great.
You're texting during the show. You don't want people texting
No,
during school.
So first of all, well, I'm not in school.
Oh, that is
Not in
correct.
school.
I was just giving my team members hugs and giving them love.
Well, thank you for being here. We're good to see you.
Oh,
Glad to see you.
delighted to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me as always, and thank you to everyone who's here in the audience.
So, Attorney General, two big news stories. The first, of course, is Mifepristone. The Supreme Court has now extended till Thursday the fate of using Mifepristone in telehealth medicine with abortions. Tell us where we're at and what your office is doing.
So we have been following this for some time as we look to expand access to reproductive health care, not just in Massachusetts, but across the country. And obviously, we are a leader because of our healthcare ecosystem in helping other states expand access to. And so the recent Fifth Circuit decision that would frankly suggest that Mifepristone is somehow unsafe and requiring an in-person requirement to administer it, we are pushing back on along with other AGs across the country. So we led an amicus brief in support of that. Immediately after we filed that with the Supreme Court, they stayed it to sort of keep the status quo so people can still access this critical medication when necessary. The court then stayed it till Thursday, so we'll wait and see what the decision will be on Thursday and then report, obviously, to the public.
What happens? I know you don't like to discuss what happens if your side loses, but if your side loses, what happens to access to the drug in Massachusetts?
Well, I mean, one thing I will say here in Massachusetts is we're always looking at ways in which to have a legislative solution, possibly to continue access. There is also another medication that is available if we sort of get the worst case scenario, so folks can continue to access abortion care, reproductive health care. But I am hopeful and that the Supreme Court gets this right. We weren't the only ones to file an amicus to talk about how this would disrupt years of healthcare coverage that has been deemed safe for some time, including by the FDA. There were numerous amicus filed in this case, so I'm confident, but we'll see.
And one more thing, pretty shocking, right in the middle of the day, a little bit after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, on the River Street Bridge on Memorial Drive. Jim was at Trader Joe's. We almost lost him there. Anyway, this gunman just started shooting at cars and people. 2 people, life-threatening injuries. I don't know with the Attorney General's office if you have any involvement in that, but you are a law enforcement person.
Absolutely. We have a crim bureau, and I have a state police division within my office that I oversee, and the state police mobilize along with local law enforcement and other first responders. So kudos to our first responders, of course. But I remain in touch with DA Ryan. This is right now in her jurisdiction as the local district attorney for that area. I think folks saw her obviously give a press conference yesterday. I think what is really tragic and sad is I was in communication with DA Ryan before this about something totally different. And the fact that we were sort of ending our evening talking about something so horrific, so scary, so traumatic, was really heartbreaking, to say the least. And so obviously, as you all know, I'm a praying woman. I will pray for all those involved, including, of course, these victims, and support the DA in any way we can.
And what is the status of the shooter at this point? Do we know?
I don't know fully because it's within her jurisdiction,
Okay.
but obviously she will do her best to hold him accountable for those egregious and horrific acts that are, of course, on full display on social media and other videos, too. And we'll continue our work of not only supporting the district attorneys, all of them, as we do across the Commonwealth in law enforcement and criminal matters, but then even our work around guns and gun enforcement. You know, we have a gun violence prevention unit we established under my leadership. We are doing a lot to protect our gun laws here in Massachusetts. And even mental health, that has come up quite a bit in various conversations as people's reaction to what they saw yesterday. So our federal work, our state work to just expand access to mental health services too. And then of course, like everyone else, we'll continue to learn more as things unfold.
The number is 877-301-8097 if you want to call or text to communicate with the Attorney General. Just a couple more things. We can go back to the Supreme Court. It's been a pretty active week or two. They not only gut the Voting Rights Act, what's left of the Voting Rights Act, and then ensure that they move as quickly as possible in violation of their own traditional rules about implementation dates so that districts can be changed in allegedly timely fashion. Then the Virginia Supreme Court by 4-3 undoes a voter-approved redistricting thing there. My question is, on the latter, The Democrats in Virginia, who are obviously on the losing side, have appealed to the Supreme Court. A lot of legal experts, even those who are sympathetic to the Democrats' cause, say there's no real basis, there's no federal issue for the Supreme Court to consider the Virginia case. Do you agree with that?
Well, we're continuing to follow it. I think what the Supreme, even taking a step back, I actually appreciate you raising the issue because a lot of folks have not been as in the weeds because they look at Massachusetts as being obviously a little different. And I've been stressing that just even with some historical context here, right? Many folks were excluded from accessing the ballot, including black folks in this country. Many folks don't even know that history, sadly. And then you have obviously the Constitution that is amended, and then barriers still erected to prevent black folks, for example, from participating in our voting system. Poll, taxes, literacy tests, violence. And then fast forward, what are the solutions? You have the 14th Amendment, then you have the Voting Rights Act to rectify that history and make sure that communities of color not only can access the ballot, but can also even run for office, right? And so anywhere there's a majority-minority district, that's under threat based on what the Supreme Court just did. And we have some of those here in Massachusetts, so people don't think it's relevant. It is. I actually started my legal career in such a district when I was on the city council in Boston, representing largely Dorchester, Mattapan, J.P. Rosendale, District 4. And so it is now going to be extremely difficult, based on the Supreme Court's rationale in the gutting of another section of the Voting Rights Act, to defend these districts. And so this is just, for me, an opportunity to educate folks, to continue to work across, state lines on these issues, which we are doing. We're supporting other states where it's more pressing, but much more challenging. And I think Justice Kagan got it right. She didn't mince her words in her dissent, that this is certainly a setback for the participation of communities of color. And if you don't know gerrymandering, communities of color or any community, they come together to form community. In that connection and community, you create power. You create power. What kind of power? All types of power, social power, political power. So if you can just take a district and community and cut it up for political purposes, that diminishes the political power of a community. The Supreme Court essentially is allowing that now, and that's very disappointing and disheartening, to say the least.
One last thing. When we discussed the voting rights case and the Virginia case on the air when they happened, more than a bunch of people texted and said things like, how fair is it that we're in a state that where 30+% voted for Donald Trump, and every single one of our congresspeople 100% are Democrats. Why aren't 30% of the districts, or whatever the number that Trump got in Massachusetts, drawn in such a way so that people who have his point of view have an opportunity to elect somebody who shares their perspective?
I would just say, I think districts should be drawn fairly. What I mean by that is, so take Dorchester, Mattapan, where I represented. You have a community of folks. You draw almost like a circle around it, right? Instead, what we're seeing is, and you can see some of these maps, there are these crooked lines, whatever else, to cut up districts, not for the purpose or the benefit of those communities, but for the detriment of those communities, to split up that power, that political power, because of the connection community, for partisan and political purposes. That's illegal on the Democratic and Republican side. That's what the Voting Rights Act sort of stood for. No,
it's not illegal. Partisan gerrymandering can be extreme. The Supreme Court has said it is perfectly legal.
So what I mean by just the cutting up of this for political purposes, diminishing that political power, at one point was illegal.
Yeah.
Now the Supreme Court has shifted that. And so I think for me, I actually, instead of remaining in a posture of disappointment with this decision, and even the court's description as if things on the ground have changed dramatically in terms of people of color participating, it's almost like, no, that is not the case. I am honored to be the Attorney General of this state. I'm also mindful I'm the first woman of color to win statewide office in Massachusetts. Clearly, we have more work to do to ensure our political offices represent the communities we serve. So what I'm actually focused on now that I'm even in the re-election year, is people voting. Instead, what I remain disappointed by even more so is the lack of civic engagement, the lack of people voting, And I think we can do better across the country. We can certainly do better in Massachusetts. And I just hope that more people become more civically involved and more people vote.
877-301-8970.
Daniel from Somerville, thank you for calling. You're on with the Attorney General.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi, thank you. So I noticed
Daniel?
Yes, can you hear me?
Can you
Yep.
hear
Yes,
him?
I can. Thank you, Daniel.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay. So I saw the story about the guy in Marblehead who spoke up at the town meeting and basically said the emperor has no clothes and that the town was giving the authority to a golf course that has no plans to ever build housing.
This is about the MBTA
Yeah.
Communities Act. And by the
Yeah.
way, Daniel, before you do your question, we have sound from that guy just so everybody will know what you're talking about. His name is David Modica.
You should play the whole video. It's
Oh, well,
great.
we only have time for it right here unless you want to give up your time. Here's just a bit of what's become a viral clip of this David Modica at the Marblehead town meeting. Here he is.
So, but like when we're preserving like the character of Marblehead, it's like we're selfish. We're doing a bad thing. Like we're not doing any housing.
Is that a question?
Yeah, kind of. Like, are we kind of being pricks?
Beautifully put. Daniel, continue.
So when I was reading the coverage of it, I saw that the town had sought and gotten approval from the AG's office that this change in zoning would conform to the law, even though everyone
No,
had
not
heard
our
acknowledged
office.
it. Oh, okay. Well, I'm wondering how is this legal, and how is a city like Somerville, which has 5 times the density of a city like Marblehead, carrying all the burden, and
We got it.
how are
got
they
it.
getting away with it?
Let's let the
How is
Attorney General
Marblehead
respond.
getting away with it? I think.
Yeah,
is
first
what
of all,
he's-
Daniel, thank you for your question, and I appreciate that you're from Somerville because we were in Somerville for a lot of the housing work under even the previous mayor, and I know obviously the new mayor, given compliance with MBTA communities and also the other work you and Somerville are doing to bring about more housing. And I want to lift up the fact that the majority of communities, over 160 municipalities in Massachusetts, who are not getting the credit, but they should, Daniel, to your point, get the credit, have passed compliant zoning, and most of those plans, or many of those plans, are generating housing, thousands of units of new housing. And so my job, as you know, is to enforce the MBTA Communities Law. We'll continue to do that. In the context of Marblehead, first of all, David, I'm happy to give my time to play the entire video by David because it was that good, especially in the beginning when he says, is this a golf course? And the guy says, well, yeah, when I drive by, it's a golf course. And he goes, well, you don't got to be cute. I was like, David, this is going to be a great video. And it just keeps getting better and better. But to his point, and to your point, Daniel, we didn't approve it. So this is still in process. And what I mean by that is, it's not us where the initial zoning plans for pre-approval go to. This is EOHLC, so the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, which is a state agency that we work closely with, but they're a separate agency. This still has to be approved by them, so this is still under review by them. We actually have an active lawsuit against Marblehead. That's on hold right now because of the whole meeting process. So we're following this, and we will determine post EOHLC's review if there's any legal recourse we can take. But to your point, Daniel, we recognize there's a housing crisis. This is why we know the MBTA Communities Law is one tool to help, and why we're going to keep enforcing it in all the municipalities that benefit from the public good called the T to bring about more housing.
Daniel, thanks for calling. How many communities are in non-compliance, Attorney General?
I have to get you the, I'll
Roughly,
follow up
do you
before
know?
the,
Okay, well, let us know when you
it's
know.
over, yes, I will.
Okay, fine.
I mean, they're pulling
I don't want to
fast.
say it wrong because then I'll have
Fine.
a community saying, how dare you put us
Got
in
it.
the non-compliance
Yeah,
category.
and there's a sense that some are pulling fast ones to get out of compliance is what's going on
And we're
here.
following that, and I
Yep.
think, and frankly, yes, there's one video, David, went viral, and who says zoning videos can't go viral? But it also speaks to, there
You
are a
never
lot
know.
of people like David who volunteered their time to go to all of these local hearings to voice their support. And of course, we don't have a lot of videos, but there are a lot of folks who did that. And so I just applaud the civic engagement at the local level when it comes to housing policies.
Let's go to Brian in New Bedford. Thank you for calling, Brian.
Hello, Brian.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
You know, we have on Dartmouth Street in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, we had one apartment building for elderly, 65 and older, and then about 4 blocks down, another gigantic
broke up for me.
apartment building is going up in this town. And I don't understand what the
I
law
can hear
is
it.
Yeah.
on.
You just
Hold
broke
on.
up for me a little
The
bit.
Attorney General's having trouble. Is it us or is
Brian, we're going to put you on hold for a second. Hope the connection's better. We'll take a call and then come right
I'm
back
not sure
to you.
because I heard him. I
So
don't know
don't
if it's
hang
the
up.
Attorney General's headset.
I don't know. We'll check on it.
Okay.
But in the meantime, let's try David in Oxford. You're on with
And we'll come back
AG
to Brian.
Andrea
Okay.
Joy Campbell. Hi.
Hey, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Attorney General, thank you for being on. I was wondering about the status of the report that your office has been working on for several years about the clergy abuse from the Catholic Church. In Uxbridge, we were there. I know of at least 2 victims of this sort of serial abuse by local clergy, and they were interviewed several years ago. And there's nothing that's come out yet. And could you give us an update on the status of that report?
Thank you for the question, David.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
And I appreciate you lifting this up. And obviously, it is tragic anytime anyone experiences clergy abuse or any type of abuse. And I got to give credit to even Rep. Lon, who recently had his op-ed out, really sharing his story, and that vulnerability, I think, has prompted others to do the same, including legislation we've been working on the statute of limitations related to these types of cases and expanding and extending that. I can't say any more about the report because, as I said before, it's actually still in the hands of a judge who gets very upset when you speak out of turn, when it is going through a judicial process. But I promise you, David, and others who have reached out to us, as soon as I can share the release of that report, the status of it, et cetera, with a sign-off from the judge involved in this case, I will do so. But it's still in a judicial process, but more to come on that.
David, thanks. Let's try Brian again. We're told the headset for
Okay,
the
thank
Attorney
you.
General. Hi. Start from the beginning, if you don't mind, Brian, please.
Thank you, Brian.
Not at all. Okay, so on Dartmouth Street in Dartmouth, which I travel down Dartmouth Street a lot, there's one apartment building there. It's a 55 and older apartment building, and I think the laws are affecting these. And about 4 blocks down, a gigantic apartment building was just built there also. I think the traffic is going to be unbelievable. It's not in my backyard issue. It's about, you know, how does this affect the residents, the sewer issues. Also, these apartments are not cheap. There's another one going up, I think, on Hathaway Road in New Bedford that's just going to cause such a snare as far as traffic. It's unbelievable. I mean, it seems like we don't have a choice of where these things go. I don't understand what's happening. It's like people don't have common sense on where to build these apartment buildings.
So what's
that
your
we
question?
need.
Brian, what's the question for the AG?
Mike,
How are the laws affecting, you know, the local people that we don't have a choice of where these, you know, that's what I'm being told by the zoning.
Got it.
Got
Attorney
it.
General.
So I have less of an involvement as Attorney General in the local zoning compliances and around specific development projects. But if you allow me, Brian, just to put on my former city council hat, I had a direct role when I was on the city council in zoning conversations because I represented a district. Anytime there was a new development, I, as a local elected official, was tasked with engaging my constituents who lived in my district and then bringing to the zoning board either letters of support, letters of opposition, or letters of just non-opposition, somewhere in the middle, depending on what I heard from community. So this is the task of local elected officials, to work with community on various projects, including the concerns you have. Sometimes some development didn't move forward quickly, but it ultimately did once parking concerns were figured out, or other infrastructure concerns were figured out, or even community that mobilized to push for greater affordable price points for housing. Then, you know, a developer would, or the proponent would change the design or the proposal, and then we would go before the zoning board in support. So this is a local issue. Where my job comes in now as Attorney General is obviously enforcing some of our state laws that are applicable depending on what the issue is. So I hear your frustration, Brian, loud and clear. This is this is where local elected officials play a significant role.
Brian, good luck to you. Can we spend a minute on something that we've talked to you a lot about in the past? You proposed a bell-to-bell cell phone ban in schools. My understanding is it's passed the Senate. I would like your thoughts about what the prospects are. And my understanding is, we spoke to the governor about this whenever she was here a week or so ago, the House has amended that ban to include a social media ban for people under 14, and the governor has a suggestion, well, maybe in addition to that, I think it's 14 to 16, there'd be a total number of hours combined crossing different platforms. And when we asked her, how do you enforce this without violating the civil liberties of people, because there's been a lot of criticism of this legislation, not the intent, but the effectuation of the age demonstration thing, her response was, the Attorney General is going to do it. So how are you going to do it?
We got a lot going on.
And are you convinced that you can do it in a way that doesn't cause civil liberty problems for not just young people, but other people who are over 16?
Yes, we can get this done. And why? I actually think this is, in addition to housing affordability, everything being too expensive, tech companies and accountability for them in the context of our youth and kids is the issue of the day. As I always say, I'm not just an AG, I'm a mom of 2 boys. And right now, even as we've been engaging young people through a youth tour, the thing we hear about the most is, yes, there is a benefit to social media platforms. We hear that from young people, but there's also significant harm platforms are causing our kids, especially when it comes to mental health, depression, anxiety, et cetera. And we're not going after their First Amendment rights. We have 2 lawsuits against TikTok and Meta. We have won the initial battle where they try to have us dismiss it, but we know lawsuits take too long to hold them accountable, so we filed the Study Act. The Study Act had different provisions, but the biggest points were to ban cell phones in school during the school day, which we know educators support, even young people support, because I was in Ipswich, where young people first, well, we weren't really in favor, but now we're sitting at lunch socializing. Ban cell phones, but why is that important? Because you have an addictive device with addictive platforms. So in the same legislation, the Study Act that I filed, it was also to hold tech companies accountable, age verification, other ways they said they're going to make their platform safe, but to hold them to that, because sometimes age verification doesn't work. Since then, I have been delighted because the Senate has come with their proposal, including the cell phone ban. The governor has hers, which complements. The House has theirs. So you have now all of these proposals, all designed to protect our young people, their mental health, and to hold tech companies accountable, and at the same time to create school environments that are distraction-free and easier for kids to learn, so they're more connected and socially, so teachers don't have to be police and phone cops, and most importantly, even bullying and harassment, as we see an uptick, to allow for those complaints to go down. So I'm confident that even as we engage the ACLU and other groups that have feedback, we will take all of that feedback and ultimately get done legislation that will hold tech companies accountable and also ban cell phones in schools across the Commonwealth. So you don't just have some school districts like Ipswich High School, where I recently was, with this distraction-free learning environment, but other school districts trying to figure it out.
So you support the social media ban proposed by the House and the across up to 14 and the cross-platform ban or limit that the governor is proposing. You support them both. One last question. I don't even know if you didn't buy a Trump gold phone with a $100 deposit by any chance, did you?
I'm sorry, what?
Exactly. 590,000, this is true. We both thought this was a joke. 590,000 people applied.
First of all, I have very limited money in that. So we got kids, we got all the things. So
590,000 people.
we're mindful, Jim, of how we spend our dollars.
I understand
God
that.
bless my husband and his budgeting
Okay.
skills.
As I was saying, 590,000 people
Shout out to you, babe.
have put down a $100 deposit on a Trump gold phone. That's $59 million. Here's what the website that offered them says. The deposit, quote, does not guarantee that a device will be produced or made available for purchase, meaning a typical Trump grifting situation. This is a serious question. 590,000 people are out $100. I
Why?
assume
I'm sorry. They saw that and they still
they gave
proceeded?
no, exactly. They gave deposit $100, and the question is, if there are some of those people listening or in Massachusetts who put down the $100 deposit are now learning that there's never going to be a phone,
They can call us.
they could call you. That's a
Well, actually, this is a great point. When we talk about the federal accountability work we do, that it's not personal. Again, if it was a Democratic president or a Republican and they were harming and trying to take billions of dollars from Massachusetts for health care in our schools, mental health, we would fight for that, or even our opioid work, et cetera. Here, we're doing consumer protection. So if people feel like they're being defrauded, they should absolutely call our office. We are putting money back into the pockets of people who are defrauded. So 617-727-8400. Anyone who's felt like they've been scammed. And I would just say also, because I was just at an elder conference on this point, there is often some shame attached to this where people feel like, I can't believe I was fooled because I'm just so smart, whatever it is. The techniques are sophisticated, so anyone should call our office, and we hope to be helpful.
Before we take a break, we'll take a break at the bottom of the hour. You have an opponent out of the Republican convention, Mike Walsh. Do you have anything to comment on his candidacy?
No, I can only comment on mine. I love my job. Since I took this office, I said to the people of Massachusetts, I would use the tools of the office with a sense of urgency to help them deal with consumer protection issues, help them break generational cycles of poverty, build wealth, and most importantly, enforce our laws. And I've been doing that. And I am out there hoping to earn their support again and to continue to speak on my record of putting millions of dollars back into the pockets of workers, of real consumers, and of course holding the Trump administration accountable to protect Massachusetts.
Nothing to say about Mike Walsh at all.
Why?
Well, because he's your opponent. He'll be running.
Good for
against
him.
you.
He'll be here. Invite him to say what he wants about him. I will just say I want to thank people who helped me get the signatures recently to be able to appear on the ballot, people who mobilized, who volunteered. I am grateful. And when I do this work, it's not even about the other person. He can speak to his own record. It's not personal. My job is to get out there and speak to mine.
Do you know anything about him?
I know very little. I know he files a lot of lawsuits, and that's the extent.
Okay.
You were just talking about bullying in terms of kids using
Yeah.
phones in school. Our colleague Chris Burrell has done some great reporting
Yeah.
about this pattern that he's found, some great investigative reporting he's done about kids whose parents repeatedly reported the bullying to the schools. In one case, he focused on a 14-year-old boy in puberty, a gay kid who eventually took his own life. We talked about this in the context of a great golfer at Masconomet Regional High School, a young woman who apparently was beating the boys too often, and they didn't like that, so she was subjected to terrible sexual threats. I mean, it goes on and on and on. The pattern is similar, where parents keep calling and the schools do nothing. So the bottom line in terms of his reporting is that these anti-bullying laws, which we have, don't really have any teeth to them to make the schools accountable. And he asked in his stories and to us, is there anything you can do about this problem, especially since the schools seem to be non-compliant?
So I talked to him at the NAN Project, which was really appropriate, which was an organization started by a mother and her son after their sister committed suicide. And it's a group of young people from all across the state who do peer-to-peer support around mental health, and to hopefully get young people not to get to that place where they feel as though they have to take their life. And we talked specifically about Jason, the Peabody case, and how tragic
Yeah, it's
it is.
awful.
It's an understatement. It's heart-wrenching when you think about what the parents are going through, even his friends and colleagues. So we do have laws, of course, in Massachusetts to his reporting that require schools to have procedures in place to respond to all complaints of harassment, bullying. Sometimes our office, especially through our Children's Justice Unit, is pulled in to help school districts develop policies on how to actually respond. We do trainings with school districts, and sometimes in the sports context across the Commonwealth. And in addition to that, we get complaints sometimes directly to our office from people who are being bullied, from families, and we follow up and open investigations. If anything, I said, listening to some of his reporting, this is an opportunity to think about how we do a better job of requiring and doing more training across the Commonwealth to ensure every school district has not only the training they need, but all the procedures that are in place, the same standard of responding to these allegations, because it is district by district. And so similar to even the cell phone ban, how can we make sure that it is consistent? And I think there's a role for our office to play along with our education agencies and the governor and the legislature. So I think there's some follow-up that we can be doing, and we will do that.
Is there any liability for these schools if they repeatedly ignore the complaints from the families?
I want to be careful because it depends, case by case. We're not in the weeds on every single case. One of the most horrific since I've been Attorney General, outside of hearing some of the reporting from Chris on young people taking their lives because of patterns of bullying and harassment prior to, it was even the Southwick incident, right, where people, fellow students used a social media platform to create a mock slave auction, where they then sought to not only auction off their classmate, but to do it under this mock slave auction. In that school district, we work closely with, along with the NAACP and others, to improve their policies, which were not great at the time, and training and other ways in which to respond and then hold people accountable. So we can do more of that. We want more resources to be able to do that, and I am absolutely ready to engage all the stakeholders necessary to ensure that that response can happen everywhere.
You know, and my apologies if Marjorie asked this, and feel free to say I already answered. I was just reading the text briefly. Is the law, I think it's 2010, is the law strong enough, meaning when there is non-compliance or just no serious effort on a local level?
I don't think there's any
There
liability.
doesn't, well, it's not just liability. Is there an enforcement mechanism in the law that allows you or DESE or the educational infrastructure to come down on them? Does the law need to be strengthened?
This is what we're evaluating, because I want to be careful, even before it says strengthen the law, when we have laws on the books that actually already say you are required as a school district to have procedures in place to investigate and respond appropriately to all allegations of bullying and harassment. So if anything, it says we have to come together as a Commonwealth, including our education agencies, the governor, the legislature, to make sure that every single school district actually has all of this in place, procedures, policies, and to respond, and also even to work with local school committee members, local parents, local students to ensure that. So this is an opportunity to do that deeper analysis, to Chris's point, in assessment across the board. And if we think, based on what we find, that we need to expand the law, then we should have that conversation too.
We're going to take another call, but there's somebody who's got a question about our favorite topic. If she approaches the mic, she can ask the first question. We'll get to you in just 1 second. Hang out there. Ann in Westminster, you're on with the Attorney General. Welcome.
Ann?
Hi, Ann.
Yes.
Ann's on the phone.
Yes.
Ann's on the phone, then we'll take April. Hi, Ann.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
And thank you, Attorney General Campbell. I was asking, what do you know about the Westminster PFAS crisis, and will you support stronger financial assurance requirements so companies responsible for the PFAS contamination secure cleanup?
We have a
I just
horrible
heard
connection.
Okay, it wasn't just me.
But I actually, no, it's not just you. But Ann,
Westminster.
I know what you're talking about. She's asking about the PFAS contamination issue in Westminster and saying whether or not there's liability for the companies, what is needed for you to get involved. Are you familiar with the situation?
So, Ann, if you want to stay on, because we can hear her, please
Okay.
stay on. My team is here. So connect with Lauren Martin or Cindy. So stay on specifically on
Okay.
this. And on PFAS generally, we are absolutely involved in several lawsuits.
These are the
in terms of
forever
counter-
chemicals.
Yep,
I'm sorry, I
exactly.
shouldn't have called them that. Yeah.
Whether it is a committee with the legislature, litigation that's ongoing, we are at the forefront of that. But Ann, stay
And
on
don't hang up.
specifically on this.
We'll get your contact
And we'll follow
information.
up since you broke
and
up.
We'll give it to the Attorney General's office. April is at the mic at the library. April, welcome. You've got the
April,
Attorney
sorry.
General.
Yes.
Hi.
That's fine. Yes, hi. Thank you
Hi,
for
April.
taking my question and also statement, because, I mean, 72% of Massachusetts voters voted for our state auditor, Diana, to audit the legislature. Unfortunately, the 72% were slapped in the face and said, sorry, your votes don't count. And it was just shut down by our state representatives. How, as our Attorney General, did
Yeah.
you sit back and let that be allowed?
Thank-
And I know that, like, just last week, I mean, thankfully, the SJC was able to kind of push
They
you a
did
little
their
bit
job.
forward to actually, instead of dodging all the calls and emails that Diana has been reaching out to you for, you have to now face this and actually give an answer.
Why don't we let her say
Thank-
what's going on in question
thank
one?
you, April,
Thank you,
for the
April.
question.
Appreciate it.
So, one, I would say a couple things. One, I don't think the voters' voice is discounted, because I'm one of those folks. I've been crystal clear from the beginning that I supported question 1 and I voted for it. And I did have some people who say, why would you say that? That wasn't helpful. The second piece is I've always believed that the legislature could be audited, but that there were constitutional limitations to that audit. Obviously, the auditor can audit, but my job is to enforce the Constitution. And for months, in a really long time, we were trying to settle upon what did you want to audit. The good thing about the court hearing on Friday, or I should say the hearing and then the order that came out on Friday of last week, is they made it crystal clear and they pushed the auditor in a loving way. They pushed us, they pushed her, to actually commit to an audit that only included 4 areas. And those 4 areas, she cannot go outside of that. Those are the very specifics we were looking for. The court just gave it to us. So I have a letter that will come from my office to the auditor, allowing her to proceed, to appoint an attorney, to then go into court with respect to those 4 things, and this will move forward. And so the court brought clarity there on those 4 things, and this will move forward. And so to your point, I agree with you. Let's get it done.
Okay, so if let me be clear. It sounds to me, unless I misunderstood, you just announced what your decision is going to be, which is you will allow the appointment of a special attorney general to represent her office should there be continued noncompliance by the legislature.
Absolutely. And why is this? Because the court forced some clarity and specifics that we had been seeking, which was this. These 4 things, auditor, you can proceed with those, but you have to keep your audit within those 4 things, which was not something she was willing to say to us initially. So we're going to move forward. That letter will be coming very soon to the auditor. We're going back and forth and running a conflict check at some point. If she chooses to use Shannon, we'll run a conflict check on that, and we will move forward.
So I have a couple of questions just for clarification.
No,
here.
we're moving forward.
If I can,
I'm joking, Jim.
I know you are. I know.
First of all, Ava, I don't know where she went. Thank you.
A couple of questions about this for a second here. You will not represent her. She will have the representative of her choice, the special attorney general. Is there any circumstance in which you'd end up representing the legislature against her special attorney general?
No, what would happen now is we would proceed, sagging all parties, meaning getting everyone a special assistant attorney general after you run conflicts. They then proceed back to the court on those 4 items.
Understood.
And then we're out of it. They have the attorneys that go forward. But the only reason we would be pulled back in, which is always a possibility, is if the court came to us and asked us our opinion on something, including the constitutionality of something else. And we would show up, obviously, if the court asked us.
Well, then, I think one more thing here, just for clarification. You said a second ago, when you were summarizing what the court said, she can't go beyond those 4 things. That's not what the court said, and it's not what you said in your pleadings. She can't go beyond those 4 things now. In the future, correct me if I'm wrong, if the auditor says we want to audit X, which is not one of those 4 things, then the issue arises again. If she wants you to represent her, you have to do same deal.
Exactly, can go back.
So she's not precluded down the line from picking other subject matter to audit.
I will say this.
Is that correct?
I want to be careful here, because right now we have 4 things, and the audit as defined by the court's order is limited to those 4 things. If she wants to bring something up later, the court will have to play a role in that too, because it will depend. Is it constitutional?
Why would they have to play a role? I mean, by the way, I tortured myself and watched the whole oral argument, so I actually almost know what I'm talking about for a change.
God bless. But we will visit that when it comes.
It was pretty clear,
but
right? Exactly. It wouldn't go right to the court if she said, "I want to audit X," and a new thing in a year, and it's not, and the legislature says no. The first thing I assume would be, will you represent me before it goes to court, because you may decide to represent her.
And we will see. We don't know what that is. But I know this. On this order right now from Friday, and these 4 things that are specific, we'll move forward.
Okay, one last thing about ballot questions going forward. The income tax, the cut of the income tax from 5% to 4%. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's a case before the SJC saying the thing should be knocked out because the contention is in the summary that you are legally required to prepare, there was a mistake around its impact on capital gains. That's one. I know you disagree that the mistake is material, if I remember correctly. But since that case was filed, Shirley Young was with us the other day. She and John Chesto, right? Well, that's not the only thing. Administration and Finance has now concluded that there's an impact on S corporations, and there's potential elimination of the charitable deduction, which was state charitable deduction, passed not too long ago. It seems to me, as someone who used to do ballot questions for a living, if people are signing a petition and voting on a petition that, at least according to some, is wrong on the capital gains impact, wrong on the silent on the S corporation impact, and silent on the charitable deduction impact, that the thing shouldn't be on the ballot to begin with. Am I wrong?
I'm going to wait to see what the court says. And
What's your position?
This is what I mean by it. We have been pleasantly surprised. For example, first we got a record number of ballot questions, over 40. We certified many of these ballot questions. The court, even in the stipends one, we certified it to proceed forward. The
Legislative stipends.
And the court said, after the Senate reached out, no, we're not doing that. So
you rescinded the certification.
So exactly, because the court said essentially this is not going to happen, right? And we don't want ballot questions proceeding to the voters where we know it will not actually be implemented because of the court's posture here, or implementation, or because they think it's unconstitutional, et cetera. So I'm waiting to hear. We stood up in court to defend many of our certifications, including on rent control and others. We stand by those. And now we're waiting on the court to decide if those ballot questions were indeed certified
well, what if the court says?
legally.
What if the court says to you?
We don't
if
know
you
yet,
agree,
so
wait,
I don't
if
wanna
the
go
court
there.
says to you, if you agree that it affects charitable contributions, they could be wiped out, and if you agree there's an impact on S, small, corporations for small things, should this appropriately be on the ballot? You won't answer the question?
I'm not going to say anything until we get the decisions from the court on all of those
Okay.
ballot questions, because I will tell you, I was surprised by their analysis, even on the stipend one. And then we had to proceed accordingly with
enough.
the Secretary of State.
870
And I will say the thing that irritates me the most, that I don't really think has really hit home to voters who vote on ballot questions, when we go through the certification process, and this is a stupid process founded by some other people, is we don't actually have to go through a constitutional analysis. We actually certify ballot questions here in Massachusetts to go to voters, never having to ask the question if this is constitutional or not. And I think that process needs to be revamped and shifted and
Just
changed.
whether it complies with Article 48, which is
And
the
that's the
state's
problem,
constitution.
because
I
literally
got it.
people
Because
could
it
be
wastes
voting on
tremendous
something.
amounts of time.
And also people could be voting
Yep,
on something that
that's not
actually
gonna
is
work.
unconstitutional, then it comes
Got it.
back after they voted for it, and it's unconstitutional. So that process needs to be revamped.
Hannah in Lexington, thank you for calling. You're on with the Attorney General.
Hi, Hannah.
Hannah?
Hi, thank you so much. My question is about a multi-state consumer fraud situation affecting sports teams, including my son's soccer team. It's been documented in 4 states, and I'd really love your guidance. Our team lost about $450,000 on a trip with Go Play Sports, which is a Boston-based company that does travel sports trips where they take teams to the UK or other countries. They organize tournaments and travel around soccer. They canceled our trip, which was for 55 families, about a week before departure in April. We've since learned that there are 5 other teams across Massachusetts, New Jersey, Maine, and Texas that were all hit by the same pattern, and your office has confirmed they've at least received at least 25 complaints. They've told us that they're filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, but they haven't filed.
Okay.
They've also told the travel insurance carrier that they would be reimbursing families directly, but they haven't done it.
Okay.
They've sort of made comments that no one is going to sue them because on the per family basis, it was only $3,500, so no one really, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And I'm just curious, how does your office consider when to formally go after a case like this, and what should the families across the multiple states be doing right now? Should we be working together, or what do you think?
Hannah, can you stay on, please? Because we're going to follow up with you directly on this. We have had some
Sure.
successes, even when companies file for bankruptcy, to get people back the money that was stolen from them. So stay on. We will follow up with you ASAP. my team is here with me, so please stay on, okay?
Hannah, don't go away. We'll
You
take
know-
all your contact info.
Yeah.
Here's another good consumer question. This is from John.
Is this
in
similar
West-
to Hannah's?
No.
Oh, someone
it's
else,
a-
okay.
But it's fear of getting ripped off, I think. John from West Roxbury. He said, we recently bought flooring, including insulation, from a retailer with several Massachusetts locations, doesn't name the retailer. We paid a deposit to book the job, and then as soon as the installation date was arranged, our credit card was charged for the whole balance of the purchase before the installation had even begun. Is that legal? I thought final payment wasn't allowed until the work had been performed.
It's a case-by-case basis. That depends, so I don't want to go into the weeds because it depends on whatever the engagement
Yeah.
was, the contract was. But if John wants to stay in touch with us, John, if you could leave your contact, we will follow up, especially if you've paid for something and no work has started, for example, we can help you look into that.
We've got his number right
So
here.
we'll
if
get
you
it,
want to come write it down.
We'll get it, John, and follow up.
Thank you, John, for leaving your number. It makes it easier for everybody.
You know, Attorney General, this is hard to talk about, but you've been quite open, I think, and courageous talking about your twin brother who died in custody. And since we first met you, you've been open and candid about that. You have another brother who has a rape trial pending this week. How are you dealing with that?
I will say, I was just telling my team this, because I have the best team in the whole wide world. I'm very God-fearing. And I know I speak about that, and people may think it's sort of a surface level thing. I don't start my day without reading my word. I don't start my day without prayer. And so even today, I was in the book of Job, reminded that though he slay me, I will trust in my God always. In this circumstance, as tragic as it is no exception. And that's all I can say. This is an ongoing judicial process. I have to respect it. Jury members are involved here. And this is where I have to become completely silent.
Do you
and let
speak to
the
him at
judicial
all?
process unfold.
Do you speak
I
to
can
him?
say nothing.
Okay. 877.
So thank you for that question. And anyone, I will say, to your point, I share my story openly. And I think as I engage more young people who have shame sometimes about sharing about loved ones who are incarcerated. My father was incarcerated. My mom died in a car accident going to visit my father who was in prison. All of my parents are deceased. All of my biological parents are deceased. And I have no shame in sharing that because I know there's power in it and being vulnerable. And I think it's important for young people to share that. And so I'll just leave it at that.
Fair enough.
Rama in the car, thank you for calling the Attorney General.
Hey there.
Rama?
Hi,
Rama.
thank
Rama.
you. Yes,
Yeah.
hi. Thank you for taking my call. Yeah. Thank you for being vulnerable, Attorney General. Thanks for being on again every month.
Thank you for joining in.
Yeah, you're welcome. I have a question about, speaking of things, laws on the books that have no teeth. Texting while driving. I'm in a two-lane, I'm at a stoplight, and if I look around, I'll find just about everyone texting while driving, okay? That law came about on the books, I don't know, about 8 years ago. I
Yeah.
contacted all my state reps, state senators, and everyone that would listen, that unless it's a DUI or an OUI, it will make no difference. Now, my prediction has come true. If you look around, and it's not just kids, it's not just teenagers, it's all of us, okay, myself included. If I knew it was a DUI, an OUI, and I got pulled over, but the state cops are too busy on their gadgets as well, as you all know. And I'm trying to get my state rep to propose it, if it comes to pass that we modify that law with some strong teeth saying it's an OUI or a DUI or some similar type of penalty, would you support that? Would it be constitutional? What are your thoughts on that, please?
I have to see it first, Rama. I don't disagree, though. It's a very tough law to enforce in that, to your point, you see people, and then how do you have law enforcement get in the car? But I think that's also where people went to hands-free cell phones, right, as a way in which to help. But I think it's something we can always revisit when it comes to distraction-free
You know,
driving.
Thank you, Rama.
You know, Attorney General, some
Yeah.
people have been very upset with recent decisions by the Supreme Court. And
Yeah.
as you know, a lot of rumors about Alioto and Clarence Thomas resigning, and then President Trump being able to put other people in the court. So for the next 40 years, we'd have the same group. Would you are you on board with expanding the Supreme Court? James Carville did a long rant. People may remember he used to work for Bill Clinton did a
I like how you said a rant.
Yeah, he did do it.
No, it was an F-bomb.
Yeah, it was an
laced
F-bomb
rant.
rant. That got a lot of play because it was full of F-bombs. But in any case, he was talking about it. Many people have talked about the need to expand the court. What do you think?
I haven't taken a position. I'm following it, but I am equally, just like everyone else, disappointed with the politicization of the court in many of these institutions. Even I was lifting up Frank Bellotti earlier, who obviously was over 100 years old when he passed. He was former Attorney General here and considered to be a legend because he modernized the office of Attorney General here, and then everywhere else in the country followed, where we do not just criminal work, we do consumer protection, et cetera. And we do this work regardless of what letters by your name. We don't care what political affiliation you are. We do it with integrity, following the rule of law precedent. And you're seeing the court move away from that in ways that are, I think, are really blatant and disturbing. And also just detached from reality on the ground. Even in the voting rights case, to your point, Jim, earlier, and others, to suggest that things have changed dramatically and we don't need these laws to protect civil rights is absolutely absurd. So I know there's different proposals coming out around expanding the court, limits. I will say I do appreciate, at least in the political context, conversations around term limits. I do think if you're here too long, that could be an issue, frankly. So we'll see. It's not, I don't have a direct role there, but all I can say is from where I sit, disappointed in the politicization of that organization and that court.
Can we stay on that just for 1 second? Nancy Gertner, who's a regular guest here, former federal judge, and Larry Tribe, who everybody knows, professor emeritus at Harvard Law School. They were both on the Biden's presidential commission on the Supreme Court. And what they told us is they went into that proceeding supporting term limits and against expansion, and they came out in favor of expansion and against term limits.
Tell me
Not because they were against term limits, but because they're convinced that needs a constitutional amendment. And as you know, many times in American history, I think it's 9, but it's a lot of times, Congress has done what it has the power to do, expand the court. So what in between F-bombs, what Carville said in this thing is all that should matter in 2028, all that matters, a Democratic House, Democratic Senate, Democratic President, majority votes to expand to add 4 justices to the Supreme Court, President signs it, and then nominates 4 credible, unbiased, nonpartisan justices. Is that, it seems to me that having the support of leaders like you on state levels on something that's legal and doable, assuming they're all Democrats, and do you know?
You give our authority a lot more authority than we probably.
Well, you have bully pulpit, though. You
do.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, one of the first pieces of legislation I was most proud of that I actually thought we had a direct opportunity to not only weigh in, but to make a difference was the GI Bill. Mm-hmm. And one of my first pieces of legislative advocacy to Congress was looking at the GI Bill, where former vets who were still alive, black vets who served this country, who were denied GI benefits because of their race. And you had Congressman Clyburn and Moulton who came together for this. I got AGs from across the country, including Republican AGs, to join our efforts to push for the passage of this, which to me was a no-brainer. How can you look a veteran in the face who served this country, and they have proof that they were denied benefits of the GI Bill because of their race and not give them what they're due? That went nowhere. And so to my disappointment and deep disappointment. So we continue to advocate, to your point, and we will continue to. And I remain disappointed by the decisions we're getting out of the Supreme Court.
Attorney General, thank you so much for coming in here
Thank
today.
you all for having me. Everyone be blessed.
I was going to say,
you.
we don't have time to squeeze in another one, do we?
No.
No, we
Do
don't.
you have
you
anything
all.
you want to say? You have a minute.
I will just say these are tough times, to say the least. I tell my team all the time, take care of your spiritual, mental, and physical health. And if you are a faith-driven person, this is the time to start praying for more and more people, seeing the humanity in everyone. That's what I would do.
I'm not faith-driven. What do I do?
You just maybe just stand here and support and encouragement. And then I will just say, Joy is my middle name, so I just have to stand on that every day. So I'll give you a little bit of that.
Thank
Jim.
you. I
can
accept
spread
that.
We're going to
too.
talk
Thank you,
about
Attorney
lying in the
General.
grass later on. Maybe
But
Jim
it's an
should
honor
spend
and
more
privilege
time.
to be the Attorney General of the greatest state in the country. So thank you all and stay blessed.
Thank you so
very
much for your
much.
time.